Welcome back to Important Updates, global news without the noise. Subscribe to stay updated. The desert air over Tehran's Imam Khomeini International Airport shimmered under the late afternoon sun, the heat distorting the horizon and cloaking the runways in a wavering haze. The city beyond seemed to hold its breath, as if sensing the significance of what was about to unfold. Suddenly, a procession of massive, gray Chinese Y-20 military transport planes appeared in the sky, their silhouettes growing larger as they descended. The thunder of their engines echoed across the tarmac, a sound both foreign and unmistakably powerful. On the tarmac, Iranian officials, some in crisp suits, others in military uniforms, stood in silence. Their faces revealed a complex mix of determination, pride, and satisfaction, aware that this moment would be remembered for years to come. This was no routine delivery. It was a statement, a bold declaration of new alliances and shifting power in the region. As the cargo doors swung open, high-resolution satellite imagery from orbiting US and Israeli satellites captured every detail, transmitting the images in real time to intelligence agencies around the world. Thousands of miles away, in a dimly lit office at Fort Meade, a U.S. intelligence analyst watched the feeds and triggered a cascade of urgent alerts through the American government, setting off a chain reaction that would reach the highest levels of power. The Dragon had landed in Persia, and Washington was just waking up to the reality of a new player asserting itself in the heart of the Middle East. On the ground, Iranian crews worked with practiced efficiency, swiftly offloading pallets stacked with advanced electronics, missile components, and sophisticated drone systems, technology that would soon alter the balance of power in the region. Each crate, carefully handled and meticulously labeled, was a piece of a larger puzzle, one that promised to significantly upgrade Iran's military capabilities and send a clear message to its adversaries. For Iran, this was more than just a delivery. It was a turning point, a bold move in a decades-long standoff with the West, and a signal that the old order was shifting. As the sun dipped below the horizon, it cast long, dramatic shadows from the hulking Chinese aircraft across the tarmac, marking the end of one era and the uncertain beginning of another. For the Americans watching from afar, it was the beginning of a long, uncertain night, one filled with urgent meetings, anxious phone calls, and the realization that the strategic landscape had changed overnight. The implications were vast and deeply unsettling. Every official in the room understood that the stakes had just been raised, and that the world was now watching what would happen next. A new chapter in global geopolitics was being written over Iran, and the US, along with the rest of the world, was forced to react, uncertain of what the next move would be in this high-stakes game. Why would China make such a bold and provocative move, risking international backlash and raising tensions across the globe? It's not a sudden decision, but part of a grand strategy that has been unfolding for years, meticulously planned and executed by Beijing's top leadership. Iran stands as a crucial partner in China's ambitious Belt and Road Initiative. This partnership goes far beyond simple trade agreements. It's about expanding China's strategic influence deep into the heart of the Middle East. By strengthening Iran's military capabilities, China is not only securing its vital energy supply lines, but also ensuring that the Strait of Hormuz, a critical choke point for global oil shipments, remains open and accessible to its tankers. For Beijing, this is about more than just economics. It's a matter of national security, economic survival, and maintaining its rapid growth in a world full of uncertainties. At the same time, this move is a direct challenge to American dominance in the Middle East, a region long considered a cornerstone of U.S. foreign policy and military power. By openly supporting Iran, China is sending a clear message. The era of unilateral U.S. power is fading, and Beijing is ready to offer itself as a powerful alternative partner on the world stage. The ongoing airlift is more than just a logistical operation. It's a highly visible demonstration of China's willingness to back its allies, even if it means risking confrontation with Washington and its allies. This is also a calculated test. China is closely watching how the United States responds, carefully gauging its resolve and willingness to defend its interests in the region. With every crate unloaded in Tehran, China forges a new, more assertive path for itself, signaling its readiness to play a leading role in shaping the future of global power dynamics. The global chessboard has shifted, and the world is watching as new alliances and rivalries take shape before our eyes. The news of the Chinese airlift hit Washington like a seismic shock. Emergency meetings were convened before sunrise. The mood was tense. The intelligence was clear: significant military cargo, a message of defiance from Beijing and Tehran. The fear: an emboldened Iran could destabilize the region and threaten U.S. allies. The airlift undermined decades of American policy and sanctions. Now, the administration faced a dilemma: respond forcefully and risk escalation, or appear weak and embolden adversaries. Every decision in the coming days would have profound consequences for American security and global standing. The stakes had never been higher. This crisis is the product of decades of tension and mistrust between the US, China, and Iran, a tangled web woven from history, ideology, and shifting alliances. Each nation brings its own ambitions and grievances to the table, making the situation even more volatile. Since 1979, the US has viewed Iran as a rogue regime, imposing waves of sanctions and pursuing a policy of containment. These actions have shaped Iran's economy and politics for generations, fueling resentment and a sense of isolation that persists to this day. Meanwhile, China and Iran have grown steadily closer, bound by mutual interests, economic necessity, and a shared skepticism of US dominance. Their partnership has deepened as both countries seek to challenge the existing world order. Their landmark 25-year strategic agreement paved the way for today's military support, opening doors to joint ventures, technology transfers, and coordinated defense efforts that were once unthinkable. US-China relations have shifted dramatically, moving from cautious engagement to fierce, open competition. Military posturing and economic rivalry now define their interactions, raising the stakes for the entire world. China's support for Iran is now another front in the global contest for power, signaling Beijing's willingness to challenge Washington's influence not just in Asia, but across the Middle East and beyond. The US policy of isolating Iran created a vacuum, a strategic opening that China was eager to fill, using economic incentives and military cooperation to expand its reach. Iran, desperate for support and eager to break free from international isolation, welcomed Beijing's overtures, seeing China as a powerful ally in its struggle for survival and relevance. The ongoing airlift of military equipment is the logical, if alarming, culmination of these long-term trends, a visible sign of how far these alliances have come and how much the balance of power has shifted. Decades of simmering tensions have finally boiled over, erupting into a major international crisis that now demands the world's urgent attention and threatens to reshape the global order. In Beijing, the decision to send military transports to Iran was coldly pragmatic. Chinese state media frames the operation as normal cooperation, not aggression. The official message: China is a responsible power, supporting a friend's sovereignty. Public opinion in China is largely supportive, seeing this as standing up to American pressure. Behind the scenes, Chinese leaders are betting the US won't risk direct confrontation. They believe the strategic benefits outweigh the risks of Washington's anger. The goal: accelerate the shift to a multipolar world where China rivals US influence. The airlift signals to the global South that there's an alternative to Washington. This is Beijing's gambit for a new global order. For Iranians, the arrival of Chinese military aid brings mixed emotions. There's relief and pride. Decades of US sanctions have been punishing, and China's support feels like vindication. State media hails the event as a triumph of resilience and a pivot to the east. For regime supporters, it's proof of successful leadership. But beneath the celebration, anxiety simmers. Many Iranians fear trading American pressure for Chinese influence, wary of new dependencies. Younger, globally connected Iranians worry this alliance will deepen isolation and provoke conflict. They yearn for normal relations and opportunities, not more confrontation. For some, The Chinese jets bring hope. For others, they signal a more dangerous, uncertain future. The nation stands at a crossroads. In the US, the Chinese airlift sparks concern and deep political division. Some demand a forceful response, sanctions, military deployments, more arms for allies. Others urge restraint, warning that overreaction could lead to catastrophic war. Many Americans, weary from decades of conflict, have little appetite for new entanglements. Domestic issues take priority, and the prospect of conflict with China is alarming. The administration faces a dilemma: act tough and risk escalation, or show restraint and face accusations of weakness. The crisis tests not just foreign policy, but America's internal cohesion. The path forward is fraught with risk. The nation debates its role in a world where its power is no longer uncontested. Diplomacy kicks into high gear as the US scrambles to build a coalition. Washington pushes allies for a unified condemnation of China's actions. But many nations, wary of jeopardizing economic ties with Beijing, hesitate. US envoys rush to reassure Israel and Saudi Arabia, who demand concrete action. China launches its own diplomatic offensive, framing its support as stabilizing and warning of the costs of siding with Washington. The UN becomes a battleground, but China's veto power blocks meaningful action. The debate is fierce, with each side accusing the other of destabilizing the world. The Security Council becomes a stage for global rivalry, not resolution. The world watches as the great powers maneuver for advantage. The diplomatic chessboard is set, but the outcome is uncertain. The world holds its breath, waiting for the next move. The US will likely impose new sanctions on Chinese and Iranian entities, aiming to punish without escalating militarily. But China is adept at circumventing sanctions, and may see the cost as worth the strategic gain. A military response, naval deployments, exercises, risks dangerous escalation. Even a small incident could spiral into conflict. Diplomacy remains the hardest but perhaps only path to avoid catastrophe. Back-channel talks and a rethink of US policy may be needed to de-escalate. The Chinese airlift has redrawn the strategic map. The coming weeks will test leaders in Washington, Beijing, and Tehran. The chessboard is set, and the world is watching.